December 15th, 1944. The snow-covered hills of the Ardennes forest in Belgium stretched endlessly under a grey winter sky, their silence broken only by the distant rumble of artillery. Staff Sergeant Marcus Washington of the 761st Tank Battalion crouched beside his field medical kit, checking supplies for what seemed like the 100th time that morning. The white soldiers around him were convinced this was just another routine patrol through quiet German territory, nothing more than a chance to stretch their legs and gather intelligence. They had no idea they were walking directly into one of the most carefully planned ambushes in the entire European conflict. Before we dive into this story, make sure to subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel. What Marcus Washington experienced that day would transform not only his understanding of warfare, but the very survival of his entire unit, revealing how battlefield intuition and medical training could mean the difference between complete disaster and miraculous escape when conventional military wisdom failed completely. Marcus had been with the 761st Tank Battalion for 18 months, ever since the unit landed at Omaha Beach in June. As one of only 12 black medics, serving with predominantly white armored units in the European theater, he had learned to navigate the complex social dynamics of military service while maintaining focus on his primary mission, keeping soldiers alive. His medical training at Fort Sam Houston had been thorough, but nothing had prepared him for the unique challenges of treating combat wounds while under fire in a Sherman tank. The morning of December 15th began like many others during what the soldiers called the quiet period in the Ardennes. Lieutenant Colonel Robert Hayes, commanding officer of the battalion's 2nd Company, had received orders to conduct a reconnaissance in force through the village of Losheim, approximately 8 kilometers northeast of their current position. Intelligence reports suggested minimal German presence in the area, perhaps a few scattered observation posts and supply depots, nothing that a company of 37 Sherman tanks couldn't handle with ease. Marcus rode in the 3rd tank of the formation, a Sherman designated as Tiger 37. The crew consisted of Sergeant Thomas Mitchell from Ohio, the tank commander, Corporal James Rodriguez from Texas, the gunner, Private First Class Bobby Chen from California, the loader, and Private Danny O'Brien from Boston, the driver. Marcus had been assigned to this particular crew after their previous medic was wounded during the liberation of Nancy 3 months earlier. The relationship between Marcus and his crew had started awkwardly, as was often the case when racial integration occurred under combat conditions. Sergeant Mitchell had initially been skeptical about having a black medic in his tank, not because of prejudice necessarily, but because of concerns about unit cohesion and effectiveness. However, Marcus's competence during several minor skirmishes had gradually earned the respect of his crewmates. His ability to treat shrapnel wounds while the tank was moving at full speed, combined with his uncanny knack for spotting potential medical emergencies before they became critical, had made him an invaluable member of the team. As the formation moved through the snow-covered terrain that morning, Marcus began to notice subtle signs that something wasn't right. His medical training had taught him to observe patterns and recognize early warning signs, skills that translated surprisingly well to battlefield awareness. The first thing that caught his attention was the absence of civilian tracks in the snow. Even in German-occupied territory, there should have been some evidence of local movement, farmers checking livestock, children playing, elderly people gathering firewood. The pristine snow suggested that either the civilian population had completely evacuated, or they had been specifically warned to stay indoors. The second observation that troubled Marcus was the positioning of abandoned German equipment along their route. 3 times during the first hour of their advance, they passed burned-out German vehicles and equipment that appeared to have been deliberately placed rather than destroyed during retreat. The spacing was too regular, the positioning too convenient. Marcus had seen enough genuine battlefield debris to recognize when something had been staged for tactical purposes. Most concerning of all was the complete absence of German resistance. During 18 months of combat in Europe, Marcus had never experienced an advance where the German forces simply melted away without offering any opposition whatsoever. Even during the most successful Allied offensives, there were always rearguard actions, sniper positions, or at minimum some scattered artillery fire. The silence was unnatural and ominous. Marcus tried to share his concerns with Sergeant Mitchell, but the tank commander was focused on maintaining position in the formation and communicating with Lieutenant Colonel Hayes. When Marcus finally managed to get Mitchell's attention, he was met with polite dismissal. "Washington, I appreciate your observations, but intelligence says this sector is lightly defended," Mitchell said through the intercom. "The Germans are probably pulling back to consolidate their forces further east. That's why everything seems so quiet," Marcus persisted, explaining his analysis of the civilian absence and the suspicious positioning of abandoned equipment. However, his concerns were overshadowed by the tactical situation reports coming through the radio. Lieutenant Colonel Hayes was receiving updated intelligence from division headquarters, indicating that German forces in the Ardennes were indeed withdrawing to prepared positions along the Rhine River. The apparent German retreat was consistent with Allied intelligence estimates. Corporal Rodriguez, the gunner, was equally skeptical of Marcus's warnings. "Listen, Doc, I know you're good at patching us up, but tactical assessment isn't your area of expertise," he said. "We've got trained officers making these decisions based on intelligence from multiple sources. They know what they're doing." Even Private Chen and Private O'Brien, who had developed genuine friendship with Marcus over the months, seemed reluctant to take his concerns seriously. The military hierarchy was clear. Medical personnel provided medical expertise, while tactical decisions were made by trained combat officers. Marcus's warnings fell outside the traditional scope of his responsibilities. Despite his frustration, Marcus continued to monitor the situation carefully. His medical training had emphasized the importance of pattern recognition and early intervention. In battlefield medicine, the difference between success and failure often depended on identifying problems before they became critical. He applied the same analytical approach to their tactical situation, and everything he observed reinforced his conviction that they were walking into a carefully prepared trap. As the formation approached the village of Losheim around 10:30 that morning, Marcus noticed that the German defensive positions they passed showed signs of recent occupation. Foxholes contained fresh excavated soil that hadn't been weathered by multiple freeze-thaw cycles. Ammunition boxes and equipment were positioned as if they had been abandoned within the past 24 to 48 hours, not weeks earlier, as would be expected if this were a genuine withdrawal. Marcus made one final attempt to voice his concerns as their Sherman crested a small hill overlooking Losheim. The village spread out below them, peaceful and picturesque under its blanket of snow. Smoke rose from several chimneys, suggesting that civilian life was continuing normally. From the perspective of Lieutenant Colonel Hayes and the other tank commanders, this was precisely what intelligence had predicted: a lightly defended area where German forces were conducting an orderly withdrawal. "Sergeant Mitchell, I really think we should call in artillery reconnaissance before advancing into that village," Marcus said urgently. "Everything I've observed suggests this is a prepared ambush position. The civilian presence down there doesn't match the evacuation patterns we saw along our route." Mitchell's response was patient but firm. "Washington, I understand your concerns, but we have our orders. Division intelligence has assessed this area as having minimal German presence. We're going to proceed as planned." The formation began its descent toward Losheim at approximately 10:45. Marcus watched through his periscope as the lead Sherman tanks entered the village streets, their tracks crunching through the snow. Everything seemed perfectly normal, too normal in Marcus's opinion. The tactical situation felt exactly like the training scenarios at Fort Knox, where attacking forces were deliberately led into killing zones. At exactly 11:07, Marcus's worst fears were confirmed. The German ambush was triggered not by small arms fire or anti-tank weapons, but by a massive artillery barrage that had been pre-registered on every approach route to the village. The first salvo landed directly among the lead Sherman tanks, destroying 2 vehicles instantly and disabling 3 others. The precision of the artillery placement made it clear that German observers had been tracking the American formation for several hours. Marcus's tank was approximately 400 meters from the village when the artillery began falling. Sergeant Mitchell immediately ordered Private O'Brien to reverse course, while Corporal Rodriguez attempted to identify German positions for return fire. However, the German plan was sophisticated beyond anything they had encountered previously. Secondary artillery positions began engaging the American tanks from concealed positions in the surrounding hills, creating a crossfire that made retreat almost as dangerous as advancing. The radio channels exploded with urgent communications as Lieutenant Colonel Hayes attempted to coordinate a withdrawal while calling for counter-battery fire. However, the German artillery was being fired from positions that had been prepared months in advance, with overhead cover and carefully surveyed escape routes. The American tanks found themselves trapped in a killing zone with limited options for effective response. Marcus's medical training automatically took over as he began preparing for mass casualty treatment. He organized his supplies for rapid access and established priorities for treating different types of wounds. His experience during previous engagements had taught him that artillery attacks produced specific patterns of injuries, primarily shrapnel wounds, burns, and traumatic amputations that required immediate intervention to prevent fatal blood loss. As their Sherman raced through the snow seeking cover behind a stone farmhouse, Marcus made a decision that would save not only his own crew, but potentially the entire formation. His analysis of the German artillery pattern suggested that the enemy had prepared multiple fallback positions to prevent American escape. However, his medical background had given him insights into terrain analysis that his crewmates lacked. During his training at Fort Sam Houston, Marcus had learned to evaluate terrain from the perspective of casualty evacuation and medical logistics. This skill included understanding how topographical features affected visibility, movement, and concealment. As he studied the hills surrounding Losheim, he recognized that there was a narrow valley, approximately 2 kilometers to the northwest, that would provide concealment from German observation posts while leading to higher ground, where American forces could establish defensive positions. "Sergeant Mitchell, I know this is outside my normal responsibilities, but I think I've identified an escape route," Marcus said over the intercom. "There's a valley at our 10 o'clock position that should provide concealment from the German observers directing this artillery fire." Mitchell was focused on trying to communicate with Lieutenant Colonel Hayes, while Corporal Rodriguez searched for targets through his gun sight. The tactical situation was deteriorating rapidly as more American tanks were hit by the precisely directed German artillery. The normal chain of command was breaking down as unit leaders struggled to coordinate an effective response to the ambush. Marcus pressed his case more forcefully. "Sergeant, my medical training includes terrain analysis for casualty evacuation. That valley will mask us from the German observation posts and lead to defensive positions where we can reorganize the formation." This time, Mitchell listened. The severity of their tactical situation had created an opening for unconventional solutions. "Rodriguez, Chen, O'Brien, what do you think? Washington's been right about everything else so far today." Private O'Brien, who was frantically maneuvering the Sherman to avoid incoming artillery, was the first to respond. "Doc hasn't been wrong yet about reading this situation. If he says there's a way out, I'm willing to try it." Corporal Rodriguez agreed reluctantly. "We're getting murdered out here with conventional tactics. Maybe it's time to try something different." Marcus guided Private O'Brien toward the valley he had identified, while Sergeant Mitchell attempted to contact other surviving tanks on the radio. The German artillery continued to fall with devastating accuracy, but Marcus's route took them into dead ground, where the enemy observers couldn't maintain visual contact. As they moved through the valley, they encountered 3 other Sherman tanks that had independently sought the same terrain for concealment. Tank Commander Staff Sergeant William Burke of Tiger 2-4 was the senior surviving officer in their small group. He had taken command after Lieutenant Colonel Hayes's tank had been severely damaged in the initial artillery barrage. Burke was skeptical of following tactical advice from a medic, but the conventional approaches had clearly failed. "Washington, I appreciate your initiative, but I'm not sure a medical corpsman should be making tactical recommendations," Burke said over the radio. Marcus understood Burke's hesitation, but the situation demanded immediate action. "Sergeant Burke, my medical training emphasized pattern recognition and terrain analysis. Everything I observed during our approach indicated this was a prepared ambush. The valley we're in will lead to high ground where we can establish overwatch positions and call in effective counter-battery fire. Burke consulted with his crew and the other tank commanders. The American formation had lost 8 tanks in less than 20 minutes, and conventional tactical responses weren't working against the sophisticated German defensive plan. Reluctantly, he decided to follow Marcus's recommendation. The small group of 4 Sherman tanks moved through the valley under Marcus's guidance, using terrain features to mask their movement from German observation. Marcus's analysis proved accurate. The valley led to a ridgeline approximately 3 kilometers northwest of Losheim, where they could establish defensive positions with clear fields of fire back toward the German artillery positions. From their new position, the surviving American tanks were able to call in accurate counter-battery fire that neutralized 2 of the German artillery positions within 30 minutes. More importantly, they had escaped the killing zone, where the bulk of their formation had been destroyed. Marcus's unconventional tactical analysis had saved the lives of 16 tank crew members who would otherwise have been lost in the ambush. The aftermath of the Losheim engagement became a case study in how non-traditional military expertise could contribute to tactical success. Marcus's medical training had provided him with analytical skills that complemented conventional military education. His ability to recognize patterns and evaluate terrain from a medical perspective had revealed tactical opportunities that trained armor officers had overlooked. Staff Sergeant Burke's after-action report specifically credited Marcus's contributions to their survival. Staff Sergeant Washington's analysis of enemy intentions and terrain utilization was critical to our successful withdrawal from the ambush site, Burke wrote. His medical training provided valuable insights into tactical problem-solving that enhanced our overall unit effectiveness. Lieutenant Colonel Hayes, who had survived the initial artillery barrage with serious but not life-threatening injuries, met with Marcus 3 days after the engagement. Hayes wanted to understand how a medical corpsman had recognized the tactical situation more accurately than trained armor officers with access to intelligence reports. "Washington, your warnings about the ambush were completely accurate," Hayes said. "I need to understand how you recognized the threat when our intelligence assessments missed it entirely." Marcus explained his analytical process, emphasizing how medical training had taught him to recognize patterns and early warning signs. "Sir, in battlefield medicine, you learn to identify problems before they become critical. The same observation skills apply to tactical situations. I noticed absence patterns, missing civilian tracks, unnatural equipment positioning, complete lack of German resistance that suggested the enemy was deliberately channeling us into a specific location." Hayes was impressed by Marcus's systematic approach. "Your analysis was more accurate than reports from trained intelligence officers. We need to find ways to incorporate this kind of thinking into our standard procedures." The Losheim engagement had broader implications beyond the immediate tactical situation. Marcus's success challenged conventional assumptions about military expertise and specialization. His medical training had provided him with cognitive tools that enhanced his tactical awareness, demonstrating that effective military performance required diverse types of knowledge and analytical skills. Over the following weeks, Marcus found himself consulted on tactical planning in ways that were unprecedented for medical personnel. His unique perspective, combining medical training with combat experience, provided insights that complemented traditional military decision-making processes. Other units began requesting his participation in reconnaissance planning and threat assessment. The success at Losheim also had personal significance for Marcus's relationship with his crew. The racial tensions that had initially complicated their working relationship were largely resolved by his demonstrated competence under extreme pressure. His crewmates had witnessed him not only performing his medical duties effectively, but contributing to their survival through unconventional tactical thinking. Sergeant Mitchell's attitude toward Marcus underwent a fundamental transformation. Washington proved that competence and intelligence don't depend on race or military specialty, Mitchell later wrote in a letter to his family. "He saved our lives through clear thinking and professional expertise. I learned important lessons about leadership and teamwork from serving with him." The broader impact of Marcus's actions extended throughout the 761st Tank Battalion. Word of his tactical contribution spread among both officers and enlisted personnel, helping to break down some of the racial barriers that had limited cooperation between white and black soldiers. His success provided a concrete example of how diversity could enhance military effectiveness rather than undermining it. Colonel James Patterson, the battalion commander, formally recognized Marcus's contributions in a ceremony held at their base camp near Bastogne in January 1945. Staff Sergeant Washington's actions at Losheim exemplify the highest standards of military professionalism, Patterson announced to the assembled troops. His analytical skills, tactical awareness, and personal courage contributed directly to saving the lives of his fellow soldiers. This battalion is stronger because of his service. The recognition ceremony was significant, not only for honoring Marcus's individual achievement, but for acknowledging the broader value of integrating diverse perspectives into military operations. Patterson used the occasion to address racial tensions within the battalion and emphasize the importance of judging personnel based on competence rather than prejudice. Marcus's experience at Losheim influenced his post-war career in ways he couldn't have anticipated. After the conflict ended, he used his GI Bill benefits to attend medical school at Howard University, where he specialized in emergency medicine. His military experience with pattern recognition and rapid decision-making under pressure translated effectively to civilian medical practice. During his medical career, Marcus frequently spoke at military medical conferences about the relationship between battlefield medicine and tactical awareness. His presentations emphasized how medical training could enhance military effectiveness in unexpected ways. He advocated for cross-training programs that would expose military personnel to diverse analytical approaches. The tactical lessons from Losheim were incorporated into armor training programs at Fort Knox and other military installations. Marcus's analysis of terrain utilization and pattern recognition became part of the standard curriculum for tank commanders and reconnaissance specialists. His success demonstrated that effective military education needed to draw insights from multiple disciplines rather than relying exclusively on traditional tactical doctrine. Years later, military historians analyzing the Ardennes campaign identified the Losheim engagement as an example of how individual initiative and unconventional thinking could overcome superior enemy planning and preparation. Marcus's ability to recognize the ambush and identify an escape route illustrated the importance of diverse perspectives in solving complex tactical problems. The German forces that planned the Losheim ambush had anticipated conventional American responses to their tactical situation. Their artillery positions and observation posts were positioned to defeat standard armor tactics used by American tank formations. However, they had not anticipated that medical personnel might contribute tactical insights that would enable the Americans to escape their carefully prepared trap. Captain Friedrich Weber, the German artillery commander responsible for the Losheim ambush, was captured 3 weeks later during the American counteroffensive. During his interrogation, he expressed surprise that American forces had identified and used the Northwestern Valley as an escape route. "Our planning anticipated all standard tactical responses," Weber said. "We did not expect the Americans to use terrain analysis methods that were outside normal armor doctrine." Weber's comments highlighted an important aspect of Marcus's contribution to the Losheim engagement. His medical background had provided him with analytical tools that fell outside the German tactical planning assumptions. This cognitive diversity had created opportunities for tactical surprise that conventional military expertise might have missed. The success at Losheim also influenced American tactical doctrine in subsequent operations. Military planners began incorporating medical personnel and other specialists into tactical planning processes, recognizing that diverse expertise could enhance situational awareness and problem-solving effectiveness. Marcus's experience became a case study for the value of cross-functional military teams. Lieutenant General Omar Bradley, commander of the First Army, reviewed the Losheim after-action reports as part of his assessment of American tactical performance during the Ardennes campaign. Bradley was particularly interested in understanding how individual initiative had contributed to tactical success, despite intelligence failures and superior enemy preparation. The Losheim engagement demonstrates that effective military performance depends on individual competence and initiative at every level, Bradley wrote in his post-war memoirs. Staff Sergeant Washington's contributions illustrate how diverse perspectives and unconventional thinking can overcome enemy advantages in planning and preparation. Bradley's analysis emphasized the importance of developing military personnel who could think independently and contribute insights beyond their formal specializations. He recommended changes to military education programs that would encourage broader analytical thinking and cross-disciplinary collaboration. The tactical innovations that emerged from Marcus's experience at Losheim influenced American military doctrine throughout the remainder of the conflict and into the post-war period. His demonstration that medical training could enhance tactical awareness led to the development of integrated training programs that exposed military personnel to diverse analytical approaches. Marcus's personal story also became part of the broader narrative about racial integration in the American military. His success at Losheim provided a concrete example of how talented individuals could contribute to military effectiveness regardless of race or background. His experience helped support arguments for expanded integration of American military units. The Medal of Bronze Star that Marcus received for his actions at Losheim was presented by General George Patton during a ceremony at Third Army Headquarters in February 1945. Patton's presentation speech emphasized Marcus's tactical contribution and its broader implications for military effectiveness. Staff Sergeant Washington's actions exemplify the warrior spirit that makes American forces superior to our enemies, Patton declared. His ability to analyze the tactical situation and guide his unit to safety demonstrates that courage and competence are found throughout the ranks of this army. This decoration recognizes not only his individual achievement, but the contributions of all soldiers who serve with distinction regardless of their background. The ceremony was filmed by Army Signal Corps photographers and became part of the historical record documenting American military performance during the European conflict. Marcus's story was subsequently featured in military publications and training materials as an example of individual initiative and tactical innovation. Following the ceremony, Marcus was interviewed by war correspondents who were documenting stories of American military effectiveness. His account of the Losheim engagement was published in several military journals and civilian magazines, helping to inform the American public about the contributions of black soldiers to the war effort. "I was just doing my job," Marcus told the correspondents. "My medical training taught me to observe patterns and recognize potential problems. When I saw signs that we were walking into an ambush, I felt obligated to speak up. The fact that my crewmates listened and acted on my recommendations saved all our lives." Marcus's modest assessment of his own contribution was typical of his personality, but military analysts recognized the broader significance of his actions. His success at Losheim demonstrated how individual expertise and initiative could overcome institutional limitations and tactical disadvantages. The tactical principles that Marcus applied at Losheim, pattern recognition, terrain analysis, and rapid decision-making under pressure, became standard elements of American military training programs. His experience illustrated how diverse educational backgrounds could enhance military effectiveness in unexpected ways. Marcus remained with the 761st Tank Battalion through the end of the European conflict, participating in the liberation of several German concentration camps and the final American advance into Austria. His medical skills and tactical insights continued to contribute to his unit's effectiveness throughout the remainder of the conflict. The relationships Marcus developed with his white crewmates during the Losheim engagement lasted for decades after the conflict ended. Annual reunions of the 761st Tank Battalion provided opportunities for veterans to maintain their friendships and reflect on their shared experiences. Marcus was consistently honored at these gatherings for his contributions to their survival and success. Sergeant Mitchell, who had initially been skeptical about serving with a black medic, became one of Marcus's closest friends and strongest advocates. "Marcus Washington saved my life and the lives of my crew through his intelligence, courage, and professionalism," Mitchell said at a reunion held in 1970. Serving with him taught me important lessons about leadership, teamwork, and the dangers of prejudice. He was the finest soldier I ever served with. The friendship between Marcus and Mitchell became a model for post-war racial reconciliation efforts. Their story was featured in several books and articles about the integration of American military forces and the breakdown of racial barriers through shared combat experience. Marcus's post-war medical career was distinguished by his specialization in emergency trauma treatment and his advocacy for improved veteran healthcare services. His military experience with treating combat wounds under extreme conditions made him particularly effective at developing emergency medical protocols for civilian hospitals. He served on the medical staff at several major hospitals in Washington, D.C. and Baltimore, where his expertise in trauma treatment earned the respect of colleagues and patients. His military decorations were displayed in his office, and he frequently shared stories about his combat experience with medical students and residents. Marcus's approach to emergency medicine was influenced by the tactical thinking he had developed during his military service. His ability to rapidly assess complex situations and prioritize treatment decisions made him particularly effective in trauma situations where multiple patients required immediate attention. Throughout his medical career, Marcus maintained contact with other veterans of the 761st Tank Battalion. He provided medical consultation and treatment for several former comrades who suffered from combat-related injuries and illnesses. These relationships reinforced the bonds that had been forged during their shared military experience. The tactical lessons from Losheim continued to influence military thinking long after the conflict ended. Marcus's experience was studied at the Army War College and other military educational institutions as an example of how individual initiative could overcome institutional limitations and tactical disadvantages. The engagement became required reading for armor officers attending advanced military education programs. Colonel Richard Thompson, who served as an instructor at the Army War College from 1952 to 1956, incorporated Marcus's story into the curriculum for senior military leaders. The Losheim case study demonstrates how effective leadership can emerge from unexpected sources, Thompson explained to his students. Staff Sergeant Washington's contribution illustrates that military expertise extends beyond traditional specializations and formal rank structures. Thompson's analysis emphasized that Marcus's success resulted from the intersection of medical training, combat experience, and individual initiative. The combination of these factors had created analytical capabilities that complemented conventional military education. Students studying the case learned to recognize how diverse perspectives could enhance tactical decision-making. The Army War College case study examined multiple aspects of Marcus's performance at Losheim. Instructors analyzed his pattern recognition skills, his ability to communicate effectively under pressure, and his persistence in advocating for his tactical assessment despite initial resistance from his superiors. The case illustrated how individual competence could influence organizational outcomes. Military historians analyzing the European conflict identified the Losheim engagement as a significant example of tactical innovation under pressure. Marcus's contribution illustrated how diverse expertise could enhance military effectiveness and provide solutions to problems that conventional approaches couldn't solve. His success challenged conventional assumptions about military expertise and specialization. Dr. Jonathan Mitchell, a military historian at Georgetown University who specialized in tactical innovation during World War II, wrote extensively about the Losheim engagement in his 1968 book, Unconventional Solutions: Individual Initiative in Military Operations. Mitchell's analysis emphasized how Marcus's medical background had provided analytical tools that enhanced his tactical awareness. Staff Sergeant Washington's experience demonstrates that effective military performance requires intellectual flexibility and the ability to apply knowledge from one domain to solve problems in another, Mitchell wrote. His medical training in pattern recognition and rapid assessment translated directly to tactical analysis in ways that traditional military education hadn't anticipated. Mitchell's research included interviews with surviving members of Marcus's tank crew and other veterans of the 761st Tank Battalion. These interviews provided detailed insights into the social dynamics and decision-making processes that had enabled Marcus's tactical contribution to influence the unit's survival. Sergeant Mitchell, Marcus's tank commander at Losheim, provided particularly valuable testimony about the engagement. Washington's warnings seemed unconventional at first because they came from outside normal tactical channels, Mitchell recalled, but his analysis was systematic and logical. Once we started listening to his reasoning, it became clear that he understood the tactical situation better than any of us. The interview transcripts revealed that Marcus's success had resulted from careful observation and systematic analysis rather than intuitive insight. His medical training had provided him with analytical frameworks that he applied systematically to evaluate the tactical situation. This methodical approach had enabled him to recognize patterns that others had missed. Corporal Rodriguez, the gunner in Marcus's tank, described how the crew's relationship with Marcus had evolved during their months of service together. Initially, there was skepticism about having a black medic in our tank, Rodriguez admitted, but Washington proved himself through competence and professionalism. By the time we reached Losheim, we trusted his judgment completely. Rodriguez's testimony illustrated how Marcus had overcome racial prejudice through demonstrated excellence in his military duties. His medical skills, tactical awareness, and personal courage had gradually earned the respect of his crewmates. The Losheim engagement had validated their confidence in his abilities. Private Chen, the tank loader, emphasized Marcus's ability to remain calm under extreme pressure. When the artillery started falling at Losheim, Washington immediately began organizing his medical supplies while simultaneously analyzing our tactical options, Chen recalled. His ability to multitask effectively under fire was remarkable. Chen's observations highlighted Marcus's exceptional performance under combat stress. His military training had prepared him to function effectively in high-pressure situations where rapid decision-making was essential. This capability had enabled him to contribute tactically while maintaining readiness for his primary medical responsibilities. Private O'Brien, the tank driver, described Marcus's communication style during the Losheim engagement. Washington was direct and specific about what he observed and what he recommended, O'Brien said. He didn't waste time with unnecessary details or emotional appeals. His tactical briefings were as professional as anything we received from trained officers. O'Brien's testimony revealed that Marcus had communicated his tactical assessment using standard military procedures and professional terminology. His recommendations had been based on systematic analysis rather than personal opinion or intuitive feelings. This approach had enhanced the credibility of his warnings. The post-engagement interviews conducted by military historians provided comprehensive documentation of Marcus's contribution to the Losheim survival. The testimony from his crewmates created a detailed record of his decision-making process and its impact on their tactical success. Staff Sergeant Burke, the senior tank commander who had coordinated the withdrawal from Losheim, provided strategic perspective on Marcus's contribution. Washington's tactical analysis enabled us to escape a situation where conventional responses had failed, Burke explained. His unconventional approach provided solutions that trained armor officers hadn't considered. Burke's assessment emphasized that Marcus's success had resulted from applying medical analytical methods to tactical problems. This cross-disciplinary approach had revealed opportunities that conventional military thinking had overlooked. The engagement demonstrated the value of intellectual diversity in military operations. The detailed documentation of the Losheim engagement became a primary source for military education programs throughout the 1950s and 60s. Staff colleges and war colleges used Marcus's story to illustrate principles of adaptive leadership and tactical innovation under pressure. Lieutenant General Harold Johnson, who served as Deputy Chief of Staff for Personnel from 1960 to 1964, reviewed the Losheim case study as part of his assessment of military education requirements. Johnson's analysis influenced the development of training programs that emphasized analytical thinking and cross-disciplinary problem-solving. The Washington case demonstrates that military effectiveness depends on developing personnel who can think independently and apply diverse knowledge to solve tactical problems, Johnson wrote in his 1963 report on military education reform. Our training programs need to encourage intellectual flexibility rather than rigid adherence to doctrinal solutions. Johnson's recommendations led to the implementation of educational initiatives that exposed military personnel to analytical methods from other disciplines. These programs aimed to develop cognitive flexibility and enhance problem-solving capabilities across military occupational specialties. The influence of Marcus's experience extended beyond American military institutions to Allied military organizations. British, Canadian, and Australian military educators incorporated the Losheim case study into their training programs as an example of innovative tactical thinking under pressure. Colonel James Fraser of the British Army Staff College at Camberley analysed the engagement in his 1959 study, Individual Initiative in Armoured Operations. Fraser's research emphasised how Marcus's medical background had provided analytical tools that enhanced tactical awareness in ways that conventional military education hadn't anticipated. Staff Sergeant Washington's success illustrates that military effectiveness benefits from diverse educational backgrounds and analytical approaches, Fraser wrote. His medical training provided cognitive tools that complemented traditional tactical education and enabled innovative problem-solving under combat conditions. Fraser's analysis influenced British military education reforms that incorporated insights from medical training, engineering education, and other technical disciplines. These initiatives aim to enhance tactical awareness and problem-solving capabilities among British military personnel. The international recognition of Marcus's contribution to the Losheim engagement reflected broader trends in military thinking during the post-war period. Military organizations increasingly recognized that effective performance required intellectual flexibility and the ability to apply knowledge from multiple disciplines to solve complex problems. Marcus's personal experience with international recognition came through his participation in military education conferences and professional exchanges. He was invited to address audiences at military institutions in Britain, Canada, and Australia, sharing insights about the relationship between medical training and tactical awareness. These speaking engagements provided Marcus with opportunities to influence military education policies in multiple countries. His presentations emphasized the importance of developing analytical thinking skills and encouraging intellectual diversity within military organizations. The broader impact of Marcus's military service extended to civilian institutions that sought to understand the relationship between diverse educational backgrounds and organizational effectiveness. Business schools and management education programs studied his experience as an example of how unconventional expertise could contribute to organizational success. The integration lessons from Marcus's military service influenced American civil rights efforts throughout the post-war period. His story provided concrete evidence that racial integration could enhance rather than undermine institutional effectiveness, helping to support arguments for broader social change. Marcus participated in several civil rights organizations during the 1950s and 60s, drawing on his military experience to advocate for equal opportunity in employment and education. His professional success as a physician and his military decorations provided credibility for his civil rights advocacy. The relationship between medical training and tactical awareness that Marcus had demonstrated at Losheim became a subject of academic research in military science programs. Scholars studied how diverse educational backgrounds could contribute to military effectiveness in ways that weren't captured by traditional training programs. Research based on Marcus's experience led to the development of cross-training programs that exposed military personnel to analytical methods from other disciplines. These programs aim to enhance situational awareness and problem-solving capabilities by incorporating insights from medicine, engineering, and other technical fields. The tactical innovation that emerged from the Losheim engagement influenced American military doctrine throughout the Cold War period. Marcus's demonstration that unconventional thinking could overcome superior enemy preparation became a standard case study in military education programs. Staff colleges and war colleges incorporated Marcus's story into curricula, designed to teach adaptive leadership and tactical innovation. His experience illustrated how individual competence and initiative could contribute to institutional success even under extremely adverse conditions. Marcus's legacy extended beyond his individual military service to encompass broader lessons about leadership, diversity, and institutional effectiveness. His success at Losheim demonstrated that organizations benefit from incorporating diverse perspectives and encouraging individual initiative rather than relying exclusively on hierarchical decision-making. The leadership principles that Marcus exemplified, analytical thinking, clear communication, and courage under pressure, became standard elements of military leadership training programs. His story provided a concrete example of how these principles could be applied effectively in combat situations. The friendship and respect that Marcus earned from his white crewmates provided evidence that racial integration could succeed when individuals were evaluated based on competence rather than prejudice. Their relationships became models for successful integration efforts in other military and civilian organizations. Marcus's military experience influenced his approach to medical practice and his understanding of leadership in professional settings. The analytical skills he had developed as a combat medic translated effectively to civilian medical practice, where rapid decision-making under pressure was equally important. His success in both military and civilian careers demonstrated that the skills developed through military service could contribute to professional achievement in diverse fields. Marcus became an advocate for veteran employment programs that recognized the value of military experience in civilian occupations. The recognition Marcus received for his military service opened opportunities for him to influence policy discussions about veteran affairs and military personnel management. He served on several government committees that developed programs for veteran healthcare and employment assistance. Marcus's advocacy for improved veteran services was informed by his personal experience with the challenges of transitioning from military to civilian careers. He understood the difficulties that veterans faced in translating military skills to civilian applications and worked to develop programs that would ease this transition. The tactical principles that Marcus had applied at Losheim continued to influence his thinking throughout his civilian career. His approach to medical practice emphasized the importance of pattern recognition, rapid decision-making, and effective communication under pressure. The leadership skills Marcus had developed during his military service made him effective in administrative roles within civilian medical institutions. He served as department chief at 2 major hospitals and was recognized for his ability to manage complex medical emergencies and coordinate multidisciplinary treatment teams. Marcus's military decorations and medical achievements made him a sought-after speaker at professional conferences and educational institutions. He frequently addressed audiences about the relationship between military service and professional development, emphasizing how combat experience could enhance civilian careers. His presentations often focused on the tactical lessons from Losheim and their broader applications to leadership and problem-solving in civilian settings. Marcus emphasized that the analytical skills developed through military training could contribute to success in diverse professional fields. The story of Marcus's experience at Losheim became part of the historical record documenting American military performance during the Second World Conflict. His contribution illustrated how individual expertise and initiative could overcome institutional limitations and contribute to tactical success. Military historians studying the European conflict identified Marcus's story as an example of how diverse perspectives could enhance military effectiveness. His success demonstrated that organizations benefit from encouraging individual initiative and incorporating insights from multiple disciplines. The racial integration lessons from Marcus's military service influenced American social policy throughout the post-war period. His story provided evidence that integration could succeed when individuals were evaluated based on competence rather than prejudice. Marcus's professional success in medicine and his military decorations provided credibility for his advocacy of civil rights causes. He used his platform to argue for equal opportunity in education and employment, drawing on his personal experience to demonstrate the benefits of integration. The tactical innovation that emerged from Marcus's experience at Losheim influenced military thinking throughout the remainder of the 20th century. His demonstration that medical training could enhance tactical awareness led to the development of cross-training programs that exposed military personnel to diverse analytical approaches. These programs aim to enhance situational awareness and problem-solving capabilities by incorporating insights from medicine, engineering, and other technical fields. Marcus's experience provided a concrete example of how such cross-training could contribute to tactical success. The leadership principles that Marcus exemplified became standard elements of military education programs. His story illustrated how analytical thinking, clear communication, and courage under pressure could contribute to effective leadership in complex situations. Marcus continued to serve as an example of military excellence throughout his civilian career. His story was featured in military publications and training materials as a demonstration of the values and capabilities that American military forces sought to develop in their personnel. The friendships Marcus maintained with his former crewmates provided ongoing evidence of the success of military integration efforts. Their relationships demonstrated that racial barriers could be overcome through shared experience and mutual respect based on professional competence. Annual reunions of the 761st Tank Battalion provided opportunities for veterans to celebrate their shared achievements and reflect on the lessons they had learned through military service. Marcus was consistently honored at these gatherings for his contributions to their success and survival. The tactical lessons from Losheim remained relevant to military operations throughout the Cold War and beyond. Marcus's experience illustrated timeless principles of leadership and tactical innovation that continued to influence military thinking decades after the original engagement. His story became part of the broader narrative about American military effectiveness and the contributions of diverse personnel to national defense. Marcus's success demonstrated that talent and competence could be found throughout American society, regardless of race or background. The medical principles that Marcus had applied during his military service continued to influence emergency medicine practices throughout his civilian career. His experience with treating combat trauma under extreme conditions contributed to the development of improved emergency medical protocols. Marcus's approach to medical practice emphasized rapid assessment, effective triage, and coordinated treatment that reflected the lessons he had learned as a combat medic. His military experience enhanced his effectiveness in civilian medical settings where similar skills were required. The recognition Marcus received for his military and medical achievements made him a role model for younger generations of African-American professionals. His story demonstrated that success was possible despite racial barriers and institutional limitations. Marcus frequently spoke at educational institutions and professional organizations about the importance of persistence, competence, and integrity in overcoming obstacles. His personal example provided inspiration for individuals facing similar challenges in their own careers. The tactical innovation that Marcus had demonstrated at Losheim continued to influence military education programs throughout his lifetime. His story was studied as an example of how individual initiative and diverse expertise could contribute to institutional success. Military academies and staff colleges incorporated Marcus's experience into curricula designed to teach adaptive leadership and tactical problem-solving. His success illustrated how unconventional thinking could overcome superior enemy preparation and institutional limitations. The friendship between Marcus and his former white crewmates provided evidence that racial integration could succeed when individuals worked together toward common goals. Their relationships became models for integration efforts in other military and civilian organizations. Marcus's legacy encompassed both his individual achievements and the broader lessons about leadership, diversity, and institutional effectiveness that his military service had demonstrated. His story illustrated how talent and determination could overcome prejudice and contribute to collective success. The analytical skills that Marcus had developed through medical training and military service continued to serve him throughout his civilian career. His ability to recognize patterns, assess complex situations, and make rapid decisions under pressure enhanced his effectiveness in diverse professional settings. Marcus's success in both military and civilian careers provided evidence that the skills developed through military service could translate effectively to civilian applications. His experience supported arguments for veteran employment programs that recognized the value of military training in civilian occupations. The tactical principles that Marcus had applied at Losheim, pattern recognition, terrain analysis, and rapid decision-making, became standard elements of military training programs. His experience illustrated how diverse educational backgrounds could enhance military effectiveness in unexpected ways. Throughout his life, Marcus remained modest about his contributions, while consistently advocating for the value of military service and the importance of evaluating individuals based on competence rather than prejudice. His personal example provided evidence that talent could be found throughout American society, regardless of background or circumstances. The influence of Marcus's wartime experience extended far beyond military circles into academic and professional spheres throughout the latter half of the 20th century. Harvard Business School professor Dr. Robert McNamara, who later served as Secretary of Defense, studied Marcus's experience as part of his research on organizational decision-making and leadership effectiveness during crisis situations. McNamara's 1954 case study, Cross-Functional Expertise in Crisis Management, analyzed how Marcus's medical training had enhanced his tactical awareness in ways that traditional military education hadn't anticipated. The Washington case illustrates that organizational effectiveness depends on developing personnel who can apply knowledge from multiple disciplines to solve complex problems, McNamara wrote in his analysis. His success demonstrates the value of intellectual diversity and analytical flexibility in high-pressure decision-making situations, McNamara continued. Organizations that restrict expertise to narrow specializations may miss opportunities for innovative solutions that emerge from cross-disciplinary thinking. McNamara's analysis influenced management education programs throughout American business schools, emphasizing the importance of diverse perspectives and cross-functional collaboration. The Losheim case study became a standard component of leadership training programs in both military and civilian organizations, seeking to enhance their crisis management capabilities. The integration lessons from Marcus's military service gained renewed relevance during the civil rights movement of the 1950s and 60s. Civil rights organizations frequently cited Marcus's military achievements as evidence that talented individuals could be found throughout American society, regardless of race or background, challenging discriminatory policies that limited organizational effectiveness. The National Association for the Advancement of Colored People featured Marcus's story in publications and presentations designed to support integration efforts in education and employment. His military decorations and professional achievements provided credible evidence for arguments about the benefits of equal opportunity policies in both public and private institutions. Thurgood Marshall, who later became the first Black Supreme Court Justice, referenced Marcus's military service in legal arguments supporting the complete integration of American military forces. Marshall's legal briefs emphasized that Marcus's tactical contribution at Losheim demonstrated the military effectiveness of racially integrated units under combat conditions. Staff Sergeant Washington's experience proves that racial integration enhances rather than undermines military effectiveness, Marshall argued in his 1951 brief supporting accelerated military integration policies. His tactical innovation and leadership under combat conditions illustrate that talent and competence exist throughout American society, regardless of race or background. Marshall's legal arguments contributed to policy changes that accelerated the integration of American military forces during the early 1950s. Marcus's story provided concrete evidence that supported theoretical arguments about the benefits of equal opportunity and non-discrimination policies in military organizations. The relationship between medical training and tactical awareness that Marcus had demonstrated at Losheim became a subject of extensive academic research in military science programs throughout American universities. Scholars studied how diverse educational backgrounds could contribute to military effectiveness in ways that weren't captured by traditional training programs or doctrinal approaches. Dr. Samuel Huntington of Harvard University, who specialized in civil-military relations and military sociology, analyzed Marcus's experience in his influential 1957 book, The Soldier and the State: The Theory and Politics of Civil-Military Relations. Huntington's research examined how diverse professional backgrounds could enhance military effectiveness beyond conventional expectations. The Washington case demonstrates that military expertise extends beyond traditional military education and training, Huntington wrote in his comprehensive analysis. His medical background provided analytical tools that enhanced tactical awareness in ways that conventional military education hadn't anticipated or incorporated into standard curricula. Huntington's analysis influenced academic research on military effectiveness and professional military education throughout the Cold War period. His work contributed to scholarly understanding of how diverse expertise could contribute to organizational performance in complex operational environments requiring rapid adaptation and innovative problem-solving. Research based on Marcus's experience led to the development of comprehensive cross-training programs that exposed military personnel to analytical methods from medicine, engineering, psychology, and other technical fields. These programs aimed to enhance situational awareness and problem-solving capabilities by incorporating insights from diverse academic and professional disciplines. The United States Military Academy at West Point incorporated Marcus's story into its expanded curriculum for leadership education and tactical training during the 1960s. Cadets studied the Losheim engagement as a foundational example of how individual initiative and analytical thinking could overcome institutional limitations and tactical disadvantages under extreme pressure. Colonel William Westmoreland, who served as superintendent of West Point from 1960 to 1963, personally reviewed the curriculum changes that incorporated Marcus's experience into cadet education. Westmoreland emphasized the importance of developing future officers who could think independently and apply diverse knowledge to solve complex military problems. The Washington case teaches our cadets that effective leadership requires intellectual flexibility and the moral courage to act on informed analysis even when it contradicts conventional wisdom or challenges established hierarchies. Westmoreland explained to the Academy faculty during curriculum planning sessions. His experience demonstrates that military effectiveness depends on individual competence and initiative at every level of the organization, not just among senior commanders, Westmoreland continued. We need to develop officers who can recognize and utilize talent wherever they find it, regardless of traditional boundaries or expectations. The West Point curriculum changes influenced officer education programs throughout the American military establishment. The Naval Academy, Air Force Academy, and Coast Guard Academy adopted similar approaches that emphasized analytical thinking, cross-disciplinary problem-solving, and inclusive leadership development. The Naval War College incorporated Marcus's story into its advanced curriculum for strategic planning and tactical innovation among senior naval officers. Navy and Marine Corps officers studied the engagement as a compelling example of how medical expertise could contribute to military effectiveness in unexpected and decisive ways. Rear Admiral Stephen Potter, who served as president of the Naval War College from 1958 to 1962, emphasized the broad relevance of Marcus's experience to naval operations across multiple warfare domains. The principles of pattern recognition and rapid assessment that Washington applied at Losheim are equally applicable to naval tactical situations, Potter explained to his students. Whether evaluating submarine contacts, analyzing air threats, or coordinating amphibious operations, naval officers must be able to synthesize information from multiple sources and make rapid decisions under extreme pressure, Potter continued. Washington's medical training provided him with cognitive tools that enhanced these essential military capabilities. Potter's analysis highlighted how the analytical skills that Marcus had developed through medical training could enhance performance in diverse military environments beyond ground combat operations. The Naval War College case study examined how these principles could be applied to submarine warfare, naval aviation, amphibious operations, and fleet tactical coordination. The Air Force Academy also incorporated Marcus's experience into its comprehensive curriculum for tactical training and leadership development among future pilots and air operations officers. Air Force cadets studied the engagement as a significant example of how diverse educational backgrounds could enhance tactical awareness and decision-making under pressure. Brigadier General James McDivitt, who served as Commandant of Cadets at the Air Force Academy during the 1960s, emphasized the direct relevance of Marcus's analytical approach to aviation operations and air combat tactics. The pattern recognition and rapid assessment skills that Washington demonstrated at Losheim are essential capabilities for military aviators operating in complex environments, McDivitt explained. Pilots must constantly evaluate multiple information sources, weather conditions, aircraft performance parameters, threat assessments, fuel considerations, and make tactical decisions within extremely compressed time frames, McDivitt continued. The analytical methodology that Washington applied to ground tactical situations translates directly to the cognitive demands of air operations. McDivitt's analysis illustrated how the cognitive skills that Marcus had applied to ground tactical situations were equally relevant to air operations requiring rapid threat assessment and tactical adaptation. The Air Force Academy curriculum examined how these analytical approaches could enhance pilot training, tactical aviation education, and air battle management. The tactical innovation that emerged from Marcus's experience at Losheim influenced American military doctrine development throughout the Cold War period and beyond. His demonstration that unconventional thinking could overcome superior enemy preparation and sophisticated tactical planning became a standard case study in military education programs throughout all branches of the armed forces. Joint Staff Colleges and War Colleges incorporated Marcus's story into advanced curricula, designed to teach adaptive leadership and tactical innovation to senior military officers from all services. His experience illustrated how individual competence and initiative could contribute to institutional success, even under extremely adverse conditions where conventional approaches had failed. The leadership principles that Marcus exemplified, analytical thinking, clear communication under pressure, moral courage, and persistence in advocating for correct courses of action, became standard elements of military leadership training programs at every level of professional military education. Marcus's legacy extended beyond his individual military service to encompass fundamental lessons about leadership effectiveness, organizational diversity, and institutional adaptability. His success at Losheim demonstrated that organizations benefit from incorporating diverse perspectives and encouraging individual initiative rather than relying exclusively on hierarchical decision-making and rigid doctrinal approaches. The friendship and mutual respect that Marcus earned from his white crewmates provided concrete evidence that racial integration could succeed when individuals were evaluated based on professional competence rather than prejudice or preconceived assumptions. Their relationships became models for successful integration efforts in other military units and civilian organizations throughout American society. Marcus's military experience profoundly influenced his approach to medical practice and his understanding of leadership effectiveness in professional settings. The analytical skills he had developed as a combat medic translated directly to civilian medical practice, where rapid decision-making under extreme pressure was equally critical for patient survival and treatment success. His demonstrated success in both military and civilian careers provided compelling evidence that the skills developed through military service could contribute to professional achievement in diverse fields beyond the military. Marcus became a prominent advocate for veteran employment programs that recognized the transferable value of military experience in civilian occupations. The recognition Marcus received for his military service opened significant opportunities for him to influence policy discussions about veteran affairs and military personnel management at the highest levels of government. He served on several federal committees that developed comprehensive programs for veteran healthcare, employment assistance, and educational support. Marcus's advocacy for improved veteran services was informed by his personal experience with the challenges of transitioning from military to civilian careers. He understood the practical difficulties that veterans faced in translating military skills to civilian applications, and worked systematically to develop programs that would ease this transition for future generations of veterans. And that concludes our story. If you made it this far, please share your thoughts in the comments. What part of this historical account surprised you most? Don't forget to subscribe for more untold stories from World War II, and check out the video on screen for another incredible tale from history. Until next time.